Welcome everyone, looks we're live to another discussion. Let's talk 20 years of experience. If you're new to this channel or find this by random accident here on YouTube, I'm in the Linux ecosystem for 20 years, around 1996, 1998ish, more like discovered 1996, active since 1998, contributed to a lot of packages all over the place from GCC to Chrome, V8 and everything in between, Linux kernel and so on, as randomly senior on this channel. And I also wanted to, after all the microkernel and other things, because certainly the more I talk with other people, a lot of people agree that a lot of things could be better. And we discussed a lot of things like microkernel stuff and similar stuff. I also wanted to present here in my humble opinion regarding the state of Linux desktop, because a lot of Linux fans each year await the year of Linux desktop, and somehow it didn't really come yet. And in my opinion, one reason, it's a little bit recurring theme here, some people don't like to hear it, but that's what we are here for, to talk about it, is the language that is C, that I certainly can program in, but is not my favorite for many reasons. Although probably 50% of my time I spend writing quality C code, but I wouldn't start a new project and I would normally not use it. And this is, in my opinion, one of the biggest problems of the Linux desktop, that is Gtk. Toolkit, even older than my Linux use, what many people don't know, it was initially created as GIMP drawing kit here in the early days. So originally it wasn't, many people think it was written for GNOME, but it was actually first written for GIMP. And probably should also here formally Gtk GIMP toolkit. And it was only then for the creation of the GNOME desktop also used for that. So what are the problems with that from the high level? And in my opinion, it is just not very convenient to write big applications in C. Some people, of course, will be triggered and disagree. But I explained this already in all the security videos there on the more random live channel. We have weekly security issues of, so even the best in the industry, at the Linux kernel, at OpenSSL, and all the other libraries, frameworks, and operating systems in between. Even the best of the industry are humans and make typos. So due to the nature of not very memory safe C, there will be buffer over underruns. And worse, in my opinion, you need to code everything very explicitly with memory allocation, so there are no automatics of even from C++ constructors or other even garbage collection, although would not necessarily need this. But the point is, you need a lot of code, a lot of fine-grained low-level code of just adding there a button, connecting some signals. I've been there, I've done that. And fun fact, even when I wrote code with GTK, ironically 20 years ago, I and my friend and I, which we wrote actually GSMP, I said this already a couple of times, GSMP general, I could have opened this, but GSMP sound. And of course best. And this was written in C++, and we actually thought about this like the equivalent of, or we meant this to be, of course, 20 years later, not actively maintained. You want to find your own graphics, but they're not there anymore. Anyway, we mixed the CD with that. It was working 20 years ago, multi-track stuff, but back in the day we already didn't use bare GTK+, we used JTK-, which are the C++ bindings for that, for a little bit of sanity. But so this is so what is the issue? If you want to write some modern application, let's Google here some random samples of some outstanding but hashtag peak bugs. UI stuff, mobile and desktop. You want some animations, you want some transitions, and you just want to write there new transition, new view, you don't want to write. So what is the difference, right? If you compare modern state-of-the-art UI code with Gtk plus in C, it is usually like a factor of 1 to 50 nearly of all the manual, allocate this, init that, bind that and stuff. And so from my experience, this modern code, and modern, it's not necessarily even Apple's next step, Cocoa here, or how do the native English do, Coco? How do they say Coco? International pronunciation. Anyway, so of course there have been stuff for that. There also is Qt and a lot of other stuff. But as long as we stick not only in the kernel but on the desktop to languages that are C, and since then, what alternatives do we have since then? We had C++ since the early 90s at least, more useful since 2000. There is, of course, next steps, OpenStep and GNU-step, Objective-C based re-implementation of Apple stuff. On the C++ side, there is Qt, which also Qt, I would also not consider the super most modern, also humongous code size. So not simply using C++ doesn't solve. There's something. I'm just calling out some alternatives. So unfortunately, due to the nature of the everything in the kitchen sink, and not the super very greatest fan of C++. Of course, nowadays, then we had D, and we had Mono, C#, and .NET kind of Mono stuff, which certainly some people tried on GNOME with probably only somewhat of a success. And of course, nowadays we have Rust, Go, not necessarily saying that they are the best for that, just like we should, in my opinion, if we ever want to be top-notch in the UI and user experience department in the open source world, we need to do better than C and Gtk plus. And I'm not the only one, right? So I mean, if you ask everyone doing state-of-the-art mobile apps on iOS or Android, and then you present them Gtk plus, I think very few people would with pleasure choose Gtk plus. And speaking about mobile and Android, there we already see, is Gtk plus, was it the first choice decades ago when the Android company before Google purchased it did their Java-based API stuff? Apparently not. And fun fact, back in the day there was some GPA of Gtk portable environment or something, which also of all open source stuff up and done there. So there has been Gtk plus based C Palm top environment stuff that, yeah, so successful that few remember, and it's not in use at Android or elsewhere. Of course, there have been some other innovations in between, like WebOS or doing everything HTML, which certainly also has some issues, and other Jellyfish and so on, which or other Nokia projects with Gtk and C++. But fun fact or not so fun fact is, open source is not very, has not a very high market share and is not that often seen on a desktop. And I'm also not in general the only one. So not only is it not the most popular with developers back in the day or today, but even here is, even at Wikipedia, so how do I make this stuff up? No, I'm here as with AVX 512 in very good company with famous people like Linus Torvalds. They write here, even on Wikipedia, the most common criticism of Gtk is lack of backward compatibility in major updates, most notably in the application programming interface, API, and seeming compatibility breaks between minor releases during Gtk 3.x development cycle. Was explained by Benjamin Otte as due to strong pressure to innovate, such as providing feature modern users expect to support increasingly influential Wayland display server protocol. With the release of Gtk 4, the pressure from need to innovate will have been released and the balance between stability and innovation towards stability, but also otherwise But yeah, also innovation with C. Although some people said previously or commented there, C is a good API. Well, if it's not very expressive, right? If you need 20 lines to create some view with some buttons or 50 to do something. If you look at next steps, APIs that became Cocoa, or even more modern stuff like Swift UI, where you can, with just 20 lines of code, basically create here the whole modern UI flow then, or other example projects here with declarative stuff, then very few people would probably want to choose GTK. But so the criticism from other people goes so far as co-developer of Subsurface, member of the Intel Open Source Technology Center, criticizes GTK and developers of being abrasive and ignoring most community requests. Then the Hong Yan Yi, developer of LXDE, the GTK version, which was dropped, and all efforts focused on the Qt port, expressed disdain for version 3, radical API changes and increasing memory usage, and Audacious music player moved to Qt in version 3.6. Wireshark has switched to Qt due to not having a good experience with GTK cross-platform support. But here was also, where's Linus? Wait a second, where did I write? This criticism was probably here. Among those critical to the early releases of GNOME 3. So how amazing is the state of GNOME 3? I personally barely used it. It is the additional problem with GNOME 3, in my opinion, is I had here marathon packages because I neglected the state of the T2 Linux, because fun fact for those who maintain a source distribution since 20 years, and I neglected KDE in GNOME for a decade, more or less, because I was just not using it, and the time for just keeping the packages up to date and compiling was just too much. I had 2 marathon live streams here, 6 and 7 hours of updating a lot of GNOME 3 and KDE packages, and I'm not even through. So even despite investing, that would be like 13 hours plus surrounding stuff, here live on YouTube, I'm not even done with updating all the stuff. And fun fact, to my surprise, they have their even GNOME JavaScript, and like they have their dependencies like whatever JavaScript stuff. I couldn't even, with Google and the help of people here in the comments, couldn't even find the right JavaScript packages. So much too. Yeah, you also see JavaScript on the desktop, right? Because obviously. So this is the second thing of dependency nightmare. And sure, it's packaged in Debian and Red Hat and SUSE or something. And a lot of people of the 1057, I think I recounted the other week, the over 1000 distributions, a lot just based on Debian, and just repackage and add some wallpapers and install or something. Of course, there have been other efforts also, so not only GNOME, as you see this LXDE, but also there has been like Etoile or something, the copy they trying to, or like skin and copy more Mac APIs and other more modern efforts. But even here, so Linus Torvalds, of all, creator of the Linux kernel, for those who didn't know, has abandoned GNOME. And so yeah, if already the creator of Linux has abandoned the potentially, maybe previously, most popular desktop for his Linux kernel work, after the release of GNOME 3, saying the developers have apparently decided that it's too complicated to actually do real work on the desktop and have decided to make it really annoying to do. Torvalds stated that his opinion were universally held by very Linux developers he knew. In 2013, resumed using GNOME, though Light has gotten much better the past years. They have extensions now that are still much too hard to find, but with extension something, whatever. So yeah, even other people like Linus Torvalds at times, like, yeah, not the most amazing thing. So what is the solution? So unfortunately, as so often like microkernels, previous video, although there are microkernels, but there are 14 standards like GNOME, KDE, LXDE, who knows, of Etolier and all the other fine stuff. And at the end, nothing meets the state of the art of other commercial, like Apple's famed user interfaces and usability. Although I'm not saying Apple is perfect, certainly hashtag #pbugs, right? But also, I think, in my opinion, Apple made a lot of mistakes of design decision of the design, in my opinion, of the latest Big Sur, not as less contrast and more gimmicky, and even the icons, like, yeah. But I mean, the icons for me do not determine usability, but I'm certainly not having Apple as a gold standard. A fun fact, with all their hashtag #pbugs, I'm transitioning back to my Linux desktop here after a decade of excursion. But it is certainly still true that it's, with all its problems, still better than GTK Plus based GNOME desktops. And unfortunately, due to the nature of the everything in the kitchen thing, Qt takes longer to compile than LLVM, Firefox, and probably the Linux kernel together here of over 30 minutes or so. That probably I would also say that C++ is not solving all the problems. Certainly C++ is solving half of the problems, like memory management, better automatable syntactic sugar to use. There also like objects with constructors and stuff of not manually typing their error-prone stuff. But it's also not solving modern design principles, declarative code. Sure, Qt has XML-based UI description stuff, but I would also say that I would not write a program in XML. So in my opinion, this XML-based design stuff, this is also one thing I never liked at Apple. So fun fact, so much to the standard. Apple had an interface builder, or still has. And I always hated this because, so with this interface builder, you can click UI together, but the problem is it saves this to some, you could call it XML file. And the problem with that is internationalization. Then some Apple initially, like 15 years ago, proposed to have this interface builder file for each language, potentially, which then you need to re-click all the stuff together for all languages. You can use other means, but the other thing is also multiple people working on this interface builder file, and certainly they invalidate all the files. So totally not scalable. In my opinion, this interface builder, one of the stupidest things ever done. For new stuff, I've since a decade already tried to avoid this. And fun fact with Swift UI, it is of course the opposite route of basically the Swift UI is what I've done since over a decade already, of using code and declaring stuff of window with this frame, with this size, with this button, this alignment, how in my opinion it should have been much longer. But even at Apple, this stuff certainly takes a while. Anyway, just wanted to share here some thoughts and also raise the awareness, because a lot of people, a lot of users, they don't know C, they don't know C++. A lot of people still think C is amazing, which I know triggers people, and I will get some comments. But not only in the kernel space, but certainly even more so with modern UI and user interface, and even more so user experience with transitions, with animations, if you so dare want to have some. Not the nicest to work with, not the most compact, not the least error prone. So basically C has only cons, right? It's the hardest, it's the most expressive, like the most lines of code to do the stuff, the most error prone, and so on, and so on. Manual memory management. Then you often have strings, and then all the dynamic string stuff of user displaying stuff of. This is also why the stuff is crashing and has security issues, right? This manual string parsing. In this day and age, you get a lot of XML, JavaScript, JSON, asynchronous replies from servers and stuff, and then good luck parsing this all in C with pointer arithmetic. And yeah, it can be done if you want to have buffer overruns and other string use after free and whatnot easily, even in the Linux kernel. But trust me, with 20 years experience, very few people will not agree that C for UI stuff is neither fun nor amazing. And this modern stuff, like, it's nice to program of just adding a button without having to do memory management and so on. There is certainly a lot to do. And the reason I do these videos is not so also for normal people to understand, because they might think C is amazing, and a lot of developers may still think so. But fun fact, and proven by security vulnerabilities and the state of the Linux desktop, probably not. And also to inspire other people to do more modern stuff. Certainly the GNOME people have tried. Who remembers Vala, right? The amazing language, because you certainly need a new programming language for that. But also the use of JavaScript, which is of course a problem. Everything in the kitchen sinks there in GNOME. From C to Vala and JavaScript, you certainly get the best of the best, or maybe not. But yeah, if we want to be competitive, if we ever want a year of a Linux desktop, and if we want to make some progress in mobile, then we need something modern, and I don't think it is fixable. So due to the 20-year or over 20-year, soon 30-year legacy of GTK Plus, I would not think that you can just rewrite this in D or Go or Rust, especially with all the modern transitions and GL. And last but not least, nowadays, as I said already, with all the asynchronous data exchange stuff, it's also a web view, and this is also where the Linux desktop, although I'm using Firefox and Chrome, I'm as honest with myself here to acknowledge that Apple's Safari web view stuff as web view, as a programmer, you want some Instagram-like application or some Airbnb or whatever the case might be, or some car sharing where you have some map and some web view. So basically, fun fact, a lot of applications nowadays are just some web view with some database interface to pull out some data out of Instagram and maps and so on. And of course, there is not something as snappy and easy to use as here I want my web view. Sure, there is Firefox, there is WebKit, there is WebKit GTK, but as my 6-hour marathon live streams have proven, even packaging this and getting all the dependencies together, which still have not done, is already a challenge. And then the APIs are simply not as nice, as much as I don't like it myself, but a lot of people certainly will agree that of one of the things with all of Apple's #peakbugs, the APIs are pretty neat, clean and easy to use. And give me a view, give me this transition, give me that controller, push that, pop that, animate that over, and give me a web view. And this can be done in good old-fashioned UI kit, and with very few code, and with Swift UI with even less code, as far as my experience is usually proven. So leave in the comments below what you think, but we definitely need a UI revolution if we want to leading, or, well, the question is, will open source ever be leading in the UI front? Maybe not with this progress, potentially, but the question is also, and that is why the previous IT news here on my more random and news channel, this copyright lawsuit with Oracle, previously Sun, now Oracle, of Broken Linux there, Broken Linux and a usually failing database company, and is suing Google there for APIs. And that is the problem, right? If there would not be an API of copyright on APIs, what this lawsuit currently makes increasingly more difficult. We could just copy Apple's UI. Whether we want this is the question. Maybe just inspire and do it slightly differently as Steve Jobs. Probably in the meantime, after Albert Einstein. Probably my second most favorite quote, Steve Jobs, artist steal. Yes, in another live stream, right? A good artist copy, great artist steal. So with following Steve Jobs' advice, maybe we should just API clone there some stuff in Swift. Not necessarily saying that Swift is the best language. Also, I'm even still undecided with that, whether Go, Rust, Swift. But choice, of course, is also the problem, right? You see choice, you always, open source has choice. Yeah, we have choice of C, C++, D, C#, Rust, Go, Vala, JavaScript, I think I forgot like Swift. And yeah, sure, choice, just like 1057 Linux distributions, as per yesterday's counting. But yeah, not only choice on the Linux distribution, it's like each market share like 0 point some percent there. Same goes for languages. Even for me nowadays, sure, choice is great, but what do I choose? Do I go with Go? Do I Rust with Rust? Or do I make some experiments with Swift, which I also couldn't get compiled because compiling packages in 2020 apparently difficult. Apple's Swift wants LLVM in tree. That is a little bit inconvenient for packaging. Probably I should take a closer look. But yeah, I don't have too much of a solution, except the current state is not amazing. And with the 14 standards and now the 15s, maybe we need a 15 better standard. As much fragmentation it will bring, but in my opinion, neither GTK Plus nor Qt are the most amazing for state-of-the-art 2020 UI applications. I'm curious what you think. As per usual, we have the most people watching at the end of the live stream, so that's basically it. If I look, so quite some comments or problems is what I personally even don't like. If we end the live stream now, then it's 29 minutes, which probably still is a relatively okay time. If we even try to go over the comments, then it will be another 30 minutes. So maybe I try to do a very fast scroll over that, because the longer the live streams are, the less people want to watch them. Marco likes GNOME GTK design language, but really likes the interface and certainly not even fully accelerated. Yeah, I made a video of, many people are surprised. A lot of stuff, lot of 2D stuff nowadays, not accelerated anymore. Really sad. Good morning, welcome everyone. Amazing that you all tuned in. Andrew has something AS3 with Rust patch AVM something. I need to take a look at this, but contrary to many others, don't think WebTech and JS for building UI. Yeah, so that is an issue. I totally agree with Marco. I said this also already previously. A lot of people like this. Electron, of course, as fragmented and as hopeless as the issue is, also certainly Windows 32 APIs and forms and stuff, not amazing. Then people migrate and choose Electron, which Electron is just a fancy name of Google's Chromium browser. So you have like web applications running on the desktop, super large because each application is its own browser. I also wanted to say in another video, maybe I actually need to make a separated video. It would actually be cool if there would be a desktop application standard, so that all the Electron stuff, so like that you can ship like just 1 megabyte or 10 megabytes instead of 100 megabytes, and that people with a browser have the runtime of desktop API like Electron like stuff, because the current state of everyone ships Electron applications, and with the weekly security issues, you have weekly 100 megabyte Electron updates because all the web security issues. Yeah, the user interface stories probably boils down to good UI architecture. It's bad at coding. I mean, I would that maybe also, but I would also say that the C APIs just don't scale for really nice, snappy UIs. Just imagine building like a really large thing like OpenOffice, Firefox in pure C. Even OpenOffice and Firefox are C++, and also not using the most UI here, just some context meaning stuff. The most basically Firefox and modern browsers just a giant web view anyway and keeping the surrounding UI stuff at a bare minimum. Something with PS3, Rebug, how do you find Linux ISO 2? Yeah, I need to publish a new one, as per usual, previous video, Linux kernel regressions. You can use the last ISO, but I will publish soon a new one. Andrin says, DOM, the document object model, one of the worst things ever created. Well, not necessarily. The problem is also, I get where you're coming from. The problem is also that the web was created as an hypertext link kind of Wikipedia kind of thing, and HTML was never designed for this kind of UI application that we made out of it with all the animations and stuff. Nowadays, my impression and summary is basically a lot of web stuff, and HTML5 and Canvas and DOM stuff is mostly like usually using tricks on tricks and hacking and fiddling to simulate desktop APIs for something that was meant for hypertext markup. And that certainly, leads to the code being, because the problem is the code is also in another way. So on the other end of the spectrum of C-based GTK+, it's like working with hypertext markup and cascaded style sheet stuff to fiddle and trick around until you have the desired UI effect. That is certainly other end of the crazy spectrum of programming. And Anduin agrees that the web is, I think he means that web and DOM HTML stuff is clusterfuck. Dragon writes, QML is literally revolutionizing UI work. Hate to use the word revolutionizing, but QML is just too good to not brand it with your word. Well, I don't find it revolutionizing. I find, so what I've done and what Apple basically has copied from me is, copied from me or other people. You see, I would not, like QML is, I think is like XML, right? Description stuff. I would disagree and would say this like declarative code UI stuff is revolutionizing. Also, Apple, as usual, has shamelessly stolen it from all the other people, because previously, this is also a 180-degree turn for Apple. Previously, they had use of freaking interface builder, and now it's like use of freaking declarative code. And this is exactly what I always used and hate the interface builder. So thank you, Apple, for after a decade catching up with others, people like my use case and use there. What exactly is AS? Oops, this is also clicked that wrong. So if you mean QML as, what is it, AS2 application statement? What do you mean with AS2 UI? What is AS2? Do you have a page for that? Yeah. Wouldn't be able to tell you what to replace, and it's beyond what Adobe did. So I wouldn't be able to tell you what to replace. It's beyond what Adobe did. What do you mean with Adobe? Marco writes, Qt is great tech. Have somebody implement Gem design language for Qt, and we have a winner. Too bad Rust wasn't around before it got sacrificed. Implement GTKs, can you tell me where you got? Well, the P3 ISO is on the download server, but the last, I'm not sure if the last is the most installable. I really need to hurry and publish new ones. With a virtual machine corruption, I'm also not sure if that ISO right now is in full there. Flash being slow with mfans, lfans, naive implementation solves this. Anyway, as usual, leave in the comments below. Hex does it too, terrible implementation exploits. Qt is slower to compile than, how is Qt slower to compile than LVM? Both LVM and the kernel take longer to compile for me. Well, if I build Qt, it builds, I don't know, it's everything in the kitchen thing. Maybe if you disable all the features, but packages, it just what it is. Maybe do you build Qt? So the last time it built here for 44 minus 7 is 37 minutes, but this might have been this debug info. So this was 30. Yeah, so the debug info doesn't make it that much slower. So yeah, 30 minutes on a AMD EPYC Threadripping AMD Ryzen. Can't make this up. This is just how it is. I think LLVM builds probably in 10 minutes here, and the Linux kernel in 7. And yeah, that's what it is. I also don't know. It's just bloated. Add them something. So what else do we have here? So the problems don't want to, as usual. So the problem is I don't find interesting comments before. Yeah, Dragon writes Electron is terrible. I hate burning passion. Yeah, also this is also the industry, right? That people. This is also basically why I started this channel after seeing people like Louis Rossmann and such, and Linus CPU dropping. Sebastian there, because CPU dropping we can also do, but that people and developers don't stop this, right? Like that they don't tell management, look, this is a really bad idea, and that how we even end it, because basically, yeah, like at Apple and Microsoft, certainly, yeah, employees need to do what the management says, and then at the end of the day we have all the peak bugs. But yeah, Electron is a really bad idea. Because, as I said before, and not only in this live stream, also in a previous live stream, web application programming rather time-consuming and error-prone, and not meant for UI programming stuff in form of UI applications. And bringing that even to the desktop, already the worst programming style, like most also time, it's time-consuming, right? To get to fiddle around with HTML and CSS and all the features in between to make this stuff look and behave like you want it. And even that, bringing that most cumbersome code process plus the least efficient implementation, because it goes through so many layers of web browser, DOM and scene and JavaScript and stuff. It's like, yeah. Anyway, that's mostly it. We have here some comments beside also, yeah, UI being so good, but I can see the scroller because Chromium. Ubuntu, can you install Ubuntu on the PS3? Probably not really, because it has so little memory, so everything not super optimized for that will run like a potato. Andrin says interface builder is like how you get 99% of the apps and programs looking the same. Well, not necessarily. This is a little bit oversimplified. So the main UI stuff here is still done with interface builder, because this is how we started this in like 2004, 3 or something like that of our exact scan. I would not say that this looks like any other applications. And the fun fact is that this new Swift stuff is how you get all applications look the same, because with this new Swift stuff, so with this Swift stuff, you have basically these templates which result in all the Instagram-like and whatnot applications where unless you really program something with the Swift stuff, actually you get all the stuff looks the same. But this is probably what most management anyway wants, like make us, oh shit, I really hate when random context stuff pops up. There's like, make us an Instagram or Airbnb. Oh, come on. Can we unselect this? So yeah, one more, because, yeah, 40 minutes, because I really shouldn't spend. The problem is I want to read your comments, and Detard is Detard. I'm so happy I dropped your email. I mixed you already yesterday. Yesterday I saw the Graver or so popping up with an administration sign, and I already mismatched them for you. Man, what do you want to say that you had COVID 3 times, man? I already wrote you an email wondering if you're fine. Happy to. Man, so you want to say you had this 3 times or what? Anyway, let's only give this here one more. Detard finds Haiku. Yeah, and I mean, the benefit, and I made this video and probably liked Haiku a lot. But this is what Haiku has, what the Linux UI is a lot lacking is like one design to rule is all, like not this this incompatible UI standards between GTK Plus, so this is much more coherent and stuff. And man, deterred. I hope you. But yeah, man, how bad was it? Anyway, but yeah, 4K 120 frames and cursors per terminal. Cursor blinks smoothly and text input elements with 24 ANSI codes of detailed ones 4K 120 frames and cursors. Piratic 22 writes, if we would write a T2 installer in a UI, what would I choose? I would probably choose my own. So fun fact, of course, because I said this before, I'm neither a fan of GTK Plus and neither a fan of we can also run this actually. Let's also not, yeah, I have a VNC viewer with my own stuff because why not? Totally unpolished stuff. So this activity stuff that I use here, this is my own UI stuff, and so I would use my own stuff that is a little bit inspired by the best of Steve Jobs' thinking. And the code for this activity thing looks like this. And I'm actually thinking, and this is also a fun fact, as sexy as it always is. Also, yeah, this is UI in right. All right, we changed this. And anyway, this is somewhat like a Lua version of UI kit, like Swift UI stuff. I made already another video showing the secret source. So I would use this and amazing X Wayland UI stuff. It's like save this. Like no, we are fine. Why are we not closing that? Anyway, so I would edify. Did I not say yes? Save file, no, modified. Somehow this, okay, this Emacs integration stuff, not the most amazing this way. And so I would use my own, and so because I'm not nice, I wanted to write an application for Windows and Linux with GTK, no Qt. I'm also, yeah, Qt is already not the most amazing, and then paying this royalties. So it's not yet super amazing, but it works for the most part. As you see, it somewhat mimics the Mac UI, and it even has on Windows. So fun fact, our application on Windows and Linux has some more features like the Mac version. The Mac version doesn't have this workspace where you can move your scans around and rotate and delete. But anyway, this is certainly the problem of writing applications if you stuck. This is also why I did not want to write this again in Qt or Windows 32 native or something, because when we already write this application of ours a second time, then certainly not with something as limiting as GTK or as large and 30 minutes compiling as Qt, and tried to innovate some own stuff that we could potentially use and sell and whatnot, license, and time will show. But maybe I should. I actually got already some requests of can we not use it, and this is also what I wanted to say a minute ago before I digressed a little bit, is that as sexy as it always is, like your own operating system and microkernel and stuff, very hard to make money with. I have already experienced. Fun fact, it is for sure way easier to make money with some UI toolkit like Qt or other desktop applications that you sell for Mac and Windows than it is with your own operating system. And another shenanigans. So let's see, as usual, I still continue to make the mistake to look at the comments, but Dragon finds that Qt is still the best Qt platforms. Yeah, I beg to disagree a little bit. Yeah, probably, yeah, 46 minutes. As amazing as the comments are, I need to think about a new system, because I shouldn't let this live streams always run into the 1 or 2 hour mark. Otherwise, it kills the future views. It kills the future views. Thanks for your comments. I will read them later. Maybe use them and discuss them in future videos. Maybe we also do some more Linux testing in some minutes on the more live channel, more random live channel should be probably in that corner there. And yeah, happy that the Tart is back and to see you all. Thanks for your comments, looking forward to more there, down there. And if you have other amazing ideas how to make the Linux distro better, because as a last word to that, in my opinion, what needs to work much better is if you look on an Apple Mac, maybe less so on Windows, but on an Apple Macintosh, a much more integrated snappy UI, dragging and dropping stuff between an email and some word processor. The problem is, of course, our word processor is Open or LibreOffice or AbiWord or KOffice or something. And this is also the problem, right? Gtk, KDE, Gtk and Qt and GNOME KDE and stuff not playing the most together. And this is, of course, stuff that makes working much more efficient on some of those proprietary platforms. Also on macOS, quick viewing, like I can't replicate still the efficiency of looking at certain customer emails and dealing with or other contract data, of quick viewing of PDF, and basically it's also like integration in the frameworks of PDF displaying and HTML engine that sure there is something of Poplar and stuff, but yeah, C code and NAIR, and you get the idea. We discussed it. I hope you learned something. Looking forward to your comments, and don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to more discussions and code to come.